Mic testing. Mic testing. Okay, let us honor God at this time. We praise and thank you, O God. You are at work in our lives and you truly love us. Thank you for taking care of us last night. Guide us and bless us and give us wisdom as to what to do, God. Thank you for taking care of us last night and for giving us this. Bless and take care of us, especially for the quiz. All these we pray in Christ's name. Amen. So I hope you are able to access the quiz now. We will start the quiz in 30 seconds. Okay, number one, communication apprehension can lead to either facilitative or debilitative anxiety. Number two, children are less inhibited than adults to try to speak because they have little pride or dignity to preserve. Number three, being in a classroom decreases the effect of affective factors. Number four, a learner with good task self esteem is more likely to work on the task with vigor than a learner with poor task self esteem. Number five, social support is a factor in a learner's willingness to communicate. Number six, high risk takers make calculated, intelligent guesses. Number seven, empathy relates to whether or not you care if a listener understands you. Number eight, introversion or extroversion relates to how much a person seeks ego enhancement from others as opposed to oneself. Number nine, test anxiety leads to facilitative anxiety instead of debilitative anxiety. Number 10, researchers suggest that willingness to communicate may be related to other factors such as personality, motivation, self confidence, and intergroup climate. Let's go back to number 1. Communication apprehension can lead to either facilitative or debilitative anxiety. Number 2, children are less inhibited than adults to try to speak because they have little pride or dignity to preserve. Number 3, being in a classroom decreases the effect of affective factors. Number 4, a learner with good task self-esteem is more likely to work on the task with vigor than a learner with poor task self-esteem. Number 5, social support is a factor in a learner's willingness to communicate. Number 6, high-risk takers make calculated, intelligent guesses. Number 7, empathy relates to whether or not you care if a listener understands you. Number 8, introversion or extroversion relates to how much a person seeks ego enhancement from others as opposed to oneself. Number 9, test anxiety leads to facilitative anxiety instead of debilitative anxiety. Number 10, researchers suggest that willingness to communicate may be related to other factors such as personality, motivation, self confidence, and intergroup life. Okay, please finalize, submit your quizzes. So let me take a toilet break. Okay, so I'm back. We're talking about intelligence, aptitude, and working memory now. So there are other factors that relate to the success or difficulties of individuals in acquiring language. One of them is intelligence. Intelligence. Intelligence is traditionally related to success in taking paper and pencil tests. IQ was related to success in vocabulary, grammar, and reading, but not to oral production. Implying IQ may be related to language tasks that relate to analysis. So IQ was related to success in vocabulary, grammar, and reading, but not to oral production. Implying IQ may be related to language tasks that relate to analysis. So may kinalaman yung IQ sa analysis, but not to oral production. And intelligence is believed to be significant in classroom based language learning, where analysis and rule learning is involved. So, we studied last time that field independence has to do with classroom learning. Intelligence is also significant in classroom based language learning, where analysis and rule learning is involved. So, when the teaching approach is deductive, giving the rule first, and then giving practice opportunities and producing similar structures, intelligence plays a factor to that. Yet, it turned out that students with weak academic performance still did good in language learning when they were provided with the right opportunities. So even if you're not that smart, if your teacher was able to provide you with the right opportunities, then you would still do well in language learning, even though you have weak academic performance. So kahit hindi ka matalino, basta yung teacher mo binigyan ka ng tamang pagkakataon, tamang activities, tamang opportunities, then you will still do well in language learning. Let's talk about multiple intelligences. Kanina intelligence parang more on ano lang. Intelligence was more on IQ. But Howard Gardner believed IQ is too simplistic a concept to account for a whole host of skills and abilities. So he came up with the concept of multiple intelligences. So I'm sure this is no longer novel for you. You've already heard about Howard Gardner, you've already heard about multiple intelligences. That that people have different skills, abilities, and these can be considered intelligence. Now, such differing intelligences may be partly but significantly responsible for success in some aspects of language learning. So, there are aspects of language learning where this particular multiple intelligence is well suited. There is this aspect of language learning in which that particular multiple intelligence is well suited. For example, musical intelligence. Musical intelligence could explain the relative ease that some learners have in perceiving and producing the intonation patterns of a language. Music also appears to facilitate learning. So maybe musical intelligence is well suited for perceiving the intonation patterns of a language. Maybe even more for tonal languages. So musical intelligence could explain the relative ease learners have in perceiving and producing the intonation patterns of a language. Music also appears to facilitate learning. Another multiple intelligence is bodily kinesthetic modes. And bodily kinesthetic modes are connected with the learning of the phonology of a language. Class, I hope you take notes even after this session because we will have this as our quiz later this week, not later today. And of course, interpersonal intelligence is of obvious importance in the communicative process. So, in the communicative process, important is interpersonal intelligence, being able to relate well to others. That's interpersonal intelligence. So, interpersonal intelligence, being able to relate well to others, is of obvious importance in the communicative process. Then we have spatial intelligence. Spatial intelligence, especially a sense of direction, may assist the second culture learner in growing comfortable in a new environment. So you are learning a second culture, including the language, and spatial intelligence helps you become comfortable in the new environment. Now, besides IQ, somebody came up with the concept of emotional intelligence, which may actually be more important than IQ. Okay, the management of even a handful of core emotions: anger, fear, enjoyment, love, disgust, shame, and others drives and controls efficient cognitive processing. Being able to manage your emotions well is an important factor in controlling efficient cognitive processing. In other words, you think better if you can control your emotions. You can think better if you manage your emotions. So anger, fear, enjoyment, love, disgust, shame, and others. People who have good emotional intelligence are able to control their intelligence, maybe even use that emotions, and use it to control and drive thinking, or what you call cognitive processing. So emotional intelligence is quite important in language learning. And EQ is faster than IQ. The emotional mind is far quicker than the rational mind. It's ready to action without even pausing to consider what it is doing. Its quickness precludes the deliberate, analytic reflection that is the hallmark of the thinking mind. So emotions tend to take over us. We need to be able to manage our emotions. Those who could manage their emotions can do well in thinking. I think you have an idea of this already. A person who is very emotional tend to be unable to think well. So if you are too emotional, you would not be able to think well. That is why emotional quotient might actually be more important than intelligence quotient. So you need to manage your emotions well, including self control. Self control. Let's now go to aptitude. That uh, predisposition for something. Some people have a musical aptitude, quite good in music. Some people have an aptitude for language learning. So, aptitude refers to being able to learn quickly in a specific subject. However, with persistence, students that do not have an aptitude can still learn well. Class, I think, in my case, I don't really have aptitude for math, but I was able to do well in math compared to other students because of persistence, because of continued training, because of exposure to many mathematical situations. So even though I am a slow learner compared to other fast learners in math, I was still able to do well in math. So in college, I my course was computer science, and it had a lot of math subjects. And compared to many other students who had aptitude for math, I was doing slowly. I had more difficulty. But because of continued exposure, because of persistence, my willingness to learn, I developed mathematical ability. So some of you have an aptitude for physical skills, for some other topics. But doesn't mean that those of you who have don't have that aptitude will no longer learn. You can still learn if you have persistence. So aptitude may have several components such as ability to identify and memorize new sounds. So if you have an aptitude for language, then you're able to identify and even memorize new sounds. And if you have aptitude, then you are quite good in understanding the function of particular words in sentences. We're talking here about the function, not the meaning, like pronouns, prepositions, articles, determiners, conjunctions. Okay, so if you have aptitude for language learning, if you have aptitude for language, then you understand the function of particular words in sentences. Aptitude also means you can figure out grammatical rules from language texts. You're very good. You're quite better at figuring out grammatical rules from language samples. And if you have aptitude, you are also very good at remembering new words. Okay, again, aptitude may have several components, such as the ability to identify and memorize new sounds. By the way, this is aptitude in learning a language. Okay, so aptitude in learning a language may have several components, such as the ability to identify and memorize new sounds, understand the function of particular words in sentences, figure out grammatical rules from language samples, and remember new words. So these are components of aptitude in language learning. Now, remembering all these, learner success and satisfaction in a specific type of language instruction may be related to which of the above they're good at. So if you have a language instruction, a type of language instruction which emphasizes vocabulary, then if you have the ability to remember new words, then you might have more success and satisfaction with that. If you're the kind who likes learning grammatical rules, the deductive approach might be more appropriate for you, leading you to have more satisfaction and more success. Okay, so these particular components, one particular component would relate to a type of language instruction. And if there is a match, the type of language instruction matches your particular ability, then you will be more satisfied and more successful. So teachers need to vary their teaching activities, methods, styles, and approaches to cater to students' differing abilities. So you as the teacher, you need to have different activities, different methods, different styles, and approaches to cater to students' differing abilities. Otherwise, if you stick to only one teaching style, one teaching method, one teaching activity, then it may benefit only a few students. That's why teachers need to vary their teaching activities, methods, styles, and approaches to cater to students' differing abilities. Let's talk about working memory. So we studied intelligence, including multiple intelligence and emotional intelligence. We studied aptitude. We're now discussing working memory. Working memory, also called short-term memory, may also play a factor. Learners with better memory may be able to practice larger chunks of language information. So if you have good memory, short-term memory, then you can accommodate larger chunks of language information at a time. And I think class, the more you grow old, the less short-term memory you have. You see, class, when I was younger, I had such good memory that I could multiply three-digit and two-digit numbers in my mind. So three-digit times two-digit numbers, I could multiply that in my mind. I had good short-term memory when I was younger. Now I'm not quite good in doing that. So learners with better memory may be able to practice larger chunks of language information at the time. Okay, so working memory is also a factor in individual language learning. For example, a study involving French direct object pronouns showed that learners with greater language analytic ability and memory capacity were able to benefit more from the inductive and structured input instruction on written but not oral tests. So when we say inductive, you give the samples and they think about the rule. When we say structured, you are given the grammar rule, but instead of practicing it, you are exposed to input with that kind of structure. So in this study, where students studied French direct object pronouns, it showed that learners with greater language analytic ability and memory capacity were able to benefit more from the inductive and structured input instruction on written but not oral tests. So, in other words, working memory and intelligence they can actually work hand in hand, and they benefit a learner in a particular activity. Class, there were also cases where intelligent students found difficulty in language learning. So they were bright in terms of IQ. They were good in schoolwork, but they found difficulty in language learning. However, with great effort and instructional support, some of these students were able to succeed in spite of their difficulties. So effort and in instructional support is still an important factor for helping struggling students to succeed. Again, class, there were cases where intelligent students found difficulty in language learning. However, with great effort and instructional support, some of these students were able to succeed in spite of their difficulties. The challenge class is to find instructional approaches that meet the needs of learners with a variety of aptitude profiles. So, you as the teacher, you need to think of instructional approaches. So, you have been teaching your students, and you realize that some of them are like this, some of them have an aptitude for this, some of them are good at this, some of them are weak at this. So, you need to find the right instructional approaches because your students have a variety of aptitude profiles. So you need to find the appropriate instructional approaches. Now, class, there were also cases where individuals with average intelligence showed astonishingly exceptional skill in language learning. One even learning a new language in just a few weeks. So there were students who are not so bright in terms of intelligence quotient, but they showed astonishingly exceptional skill in language learning. And one of them was even learning a new language in just a few weeks. So Nina, we said a while ago we discussed that there were cases where intelligent students found difficulty in language learning. Now there are also cases where individuals with average intelligence showed astonishingly exceptional skill in language learning. So the existence of such exceptional learners suggests that an aptitude for language learning is at least partly independent of cognitive, social, and personal characteristics that are often associated with learning. So we think of cognitive, social, and personal characteristics, and these characteristics are related to language learning, but aptitude may actually be independent from, because it showed that students with average intelligence were able to learn very well, learn a language very well. So it turns out that those students may have an aptitude for language learning, and that is independent of other cognitive, social, and personality characteristics. These people possessed some aptitude for language learning, and these aptitudes are not connected to other personality characteristics. Because it turns out those students had average IQ and yet they were very good at language learning. Now, it turns out one reason for such success is a willingness to work on tasks that most learners find boring, such as using word cards to learn a vocabulary. So, yun pala. Okay, some students they show exceptional ability because of their willingness to work on things, on tasks that many learners don't want to do, such as using word cards to learn vocabulary. They're willing to do that, and because of that, they're willing to do that, and because of that, they show exceptional ability to learn a language. So effort is still an important factor, class. Effort is still important. The willingness to take effort is an important. In conclusion, the differences between learners in terms of intelligence, aptitude, and working memory play a factor in the kind of approach to language teaching employed by teachers. So a teacher gives this particular approach in language teaching, and learners who have different intelligence, different aptitude, different working memory may or may not benefit from that particular language teaching approach. Okay, so when you, as a teacher, give a particular teaching style, the characteristics of students may or may not match with that kind of teaching approach. That's why we need to vary our teaching approaches. So again, our takeaway, we need to vary our teaching approaches. Okay. Oh, this is a nice question. Do you have tips to strengthen aptitude? Aptitude cannot be strengthened. Sam once on, aptitude cannot be strengthened. If you don't have aptitude for musical ability, for example, if you don't have aptitude for music, there's no way you can improve that. But what you can do is take effort. So like I told you, I did not have aptitude for math. But because of persistence and effort, I was able to do well in math. That's a very good question, Sam. Okay. So again, you cannot strengthen aptitude, but you can make up for it using effort. I'm sure in high school you have seen some of your classmates who are not so bright, but because they had effort, they did well in school. Okay, class. I also had a roommate, a dorm mate. He had very good aptitude for schoolwork, but he was quite lazy. And so even though he had aptitude for schoolwork, he didn't get the kind of grades that you would expect for somebody with such aptitude because he was lazy. All he Relatively speaking lazy because all he wanted to do was draw. So maybe he should have taken up fine arts instead of biology because he had an aptitude for drawing. Actually, he was also very intelligent, but he didn't take much effort, so he didn't get the kind of grades you would expect from somebody with that ability. Okay, thank you for your input. My audio falters sometimes. That's why I keep on trying to repeat what I say. And I hope you could revisit this live because it's automatically recorded in YouTube. Okay, so meron daw pareho pala kayo, no? Pareho pala kayo. Masalino pero hindi masyadong may effort. Yun ba yun? Okay, so effort is still very important. Effort can make up for all our inabilities or our insufficiencies. Maybe you're not as smart as others your classmates, but if you take effort, then you can actually do well. Okay, so we study intelligence, working memory, and aptitude, and we need to vary our instructional approaches as teachers to cater to that. But intelligence, working memory, and aptitude can be made up for with effort. So if you lack those three, if you lack intelligence, working memory, and aptitude, you can make up for that with effort and persistence. Okay, hard work beats talent. Yeah, sometimes there are times when hard work beats talent. Maybe not just sometimes, many cases. Okay. Okay, thank you very much, class, for your time. So I just hope that you could revisit this video for your notes. So have a nice day, class. Have a nice day. Bye bye.